Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga.
A Mad Max Saga without
Shouldn't it be
Mad Max.
a Mad Max Saga Furiosa? Or should it be like Furiosa, a Mad Max story?
Or just Furiosa.
Whatever. Going into this, seeing the first trailer, hearing the announcement, like 8 years ago that they were making this movie, my biggest concern was, who cares?
Yep, that was a big concern of mine too.
I don't care!
I love Fury Road. Great movie. Like, for me, it's like maybe even like a 9 out of 10. I fucking love that movie. George Miller, great action director, great director. But when you're done watching Fury Road, it's like a one and done.
Yeah,
and you're not clamoring for more
like,
Furiosa.
Wait a minute, I really want to know what her backstory is, even though you kind of get it.
Yeah.
In Fury Road.
Yeah.
You're not like, wait a minute, I need to know all these little specific details.
Yeah.
Unless you're one of those people that like just has no imagination.
You're doing it.
Doing what?
Using your imagination.
I inherently hate prequels.
Same.
There are very few that do the idea of a prequel well.
Very
few. They're, for the most part, pointless.
Yeah.
Because you already know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Now, you can introduce like some new characters here and there, and okay, what's the fate of this character? 9 times out of 10, you already know what's going to happen to them, just based on where we are in Fury Road.
Yeah, exactly.
So the stakes are just not there.
No, the stakes are not there. Another reason why prequels typically suck, other than the fact that you just know what's going to happen. When you're watching a movie and the characters are talking about things that happened in the past, your mind kind of paints a picture of what that might have looked like. And 9 times out of 10, it's better than what they come up with in a prequel.
Right.
This movie, I will give it credit that Fury Road would be a logical progression
to this story.
To this film.
Yeah.
So it did very much feel like it was part of the same
That's
universe.
The thing, like, it's a decent film.
Oh, we're going to get into that.
If you separate it from Fury Road.
Where I'm going with this is that, like, again, I know he's a great filmmaker, and I know he's going to make a good movie, but who cares?
Right. Well, okay, and I remember the trailer kept pushing it, or like the marketing kept pushing it as like, the saga continues. It's like, it doesn't continue.
It's not continue. It's taking a step back.
It goes backwards and tells us a story that we kind of already know.
Yeah.
Like, we don't really need all this back info.
What's annoying is that Mad Max came out in 1979. Road Warrior came out, I think, in 81, and then Beyond Thunderdome came out in 85. In a 6-year span,
they
did 3 Mad Max movies.
Yeah.
Furiosa is almost 10 years after
Fury Road. All the hype has kind of died down. Because, I mean, when Fury Road came out, the movie was big. Like,
it was.
Everybody was talking about it. I mean, it was winning Oscars and shit, which I don't think even George Miller was expecting. It's one of those movies
that the audience and the critics were like aligned with.
They were like, this is pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then a few years go by, things die down, and now we get a prequel 9 years later. All right, I guess this is how you want to like pick the pieces back up of this franchise and move forward by doing a prequel.
Okay.
As a film, the story, the characters, if you can remove that, if you can just step back from
It's an incredibly well-made movie.
It's a well-made film. It's a decent film. I don't think it's as good as Fury Road.
It's not as good as Fury Road, but it still is a strong movie,
it's still a strong film, and it does a lot of stuff well. It's also way too long.
That's another thing. It's probably the longest movie
in the Mad Max series.
I think
it's the longest Mad Max movie.
And it's the one that doesn't have Max in it.
Right.
So it's just like, what the fuck?
And it's the one telling like the little side quest story that leads up to the movie we all love.
It's not like when you're watching the Star Wars prequels where you're like, oh fuck, that doesn't add up. Like, how does C-3PO not remember art? Like all that
right,
stuff.
all that bullshit.
There is none of that.
This, like, George Miller knows how to craft the world he created.
Yeah.
And, like, he knows how to go in and like fill in the gaps and the details.
Well, he didn't forget his own movie. Like he didn't just like make up some bullshit, you know.
Exactly.
Like it actually fits in like timeline-wise.
Right. Now there
perfectly.
were some plot elements and stuff with Furiosa's character that didn't really make sense going into Fury Road, but I mean we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Like that's less of like a continuity issue and more just like you didn't really flesh out some motives.
Sure.
That led into Fury Road, but that, you know.
We're going to get to that.
Yeah. So this movie picks up when she's a child, and she's living in the green place, basically Eden. She's picking some fruit. And there's something I liked. They didn't waste time like showing her like with her family, like learning about this. It's like, nope, she's like there, she's there with her friend, she's picking the fruit, and then all of a sudden she's kidnapped.
Yeah.
And it just goes. And then we get a really, 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 really long
an extended chase
sequence where her mother is going after her, trying to rescue her from these marauders that are bringing her back to their base camp. And it's a good sequence. It just goes on a long time. And eventually she gets brought back to this place, and that's where we meet probably the best character in the movie.
Who do we have here?
It's,
Chris Hemsworth playing Dementus.
Dr. Dementus.
Yes, probably his best performance.
Very like odd character for him to play,
but it was great.
But he did such a great job.
Yeah, every time he was on the screen, it was just a pleasure seeing him act.
Like he's kind of like oozing charm, but at the same time, like he's such an asshole.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's a subtle asshole.
Yeah.
No shame in hate. It's one of the great forces of nature.
So you get introduced to him, and he's like, oh, she comes from this place of abundance, this green place. Well, we have to like go out and find it. But she's like, she's not saying anything. She's not telling him where it is. And then you kind of get into this story of him being pitted against the villain from Fury Road.
Right.
And then she's kind of just like caught up in the middle of it.
Well, he also kills her mother.
Well, yes, that gives her a pretty strong motivator for why she hates him.
Yes.
Because the mother comes after her, obviously, almost rescues her, and then he, crucifies her.
But
basically.
then Hemsworth's gang try to infiltrate this citadel.
Yeah.
They fail, and now it's basically they're a warring tribe against Immortan Joe's citadel.
Yes.
And the whole movie's kind of almost like a political power
it's a power struggle.
Between the
so
two
he
of
goes, Hemsworth goes and takes over Gastown.
Yeah.
And I really liked in this film how they did a little more world building and expanded on like getting to see some of these places that you just hear about in Fury Road.
And it was cool, like in Fury Road, you see what's the Oil Town or whatever.
Gastown.
You see
you see it in the distance.
But
now we actually go there.
See it.
It's cool. We get to go there. And then there's the character in Fury Road who pops up in this one as well. The guy, the bullet farmer.
I am the scales of justice.
Like he's the guy that provides them with their ammunition, but you don't know where he's from. And now we actually go to Bullet Town.
Yes.
And you see that location. It's cool. It's a little more world building, and it's done in service of the story. It's not just thrown out there for no reason.
Right. I did appreciate that. In terms of like the prequel aspect, I do feel like this might even be the best prequel I've ever seen.
That's a bold statement.
You know what I mean? Just in terms of like
modern prequel.
Modern prequels, just like connecting from like the movie that is supposed to come after it. Like it does a good job of doing that.
So this is where we kind of get into a little bit of a lull with that particular plot, because once he takes over Gastown, he kind of disappears for a while.
Yeah, he's kind of out.
And now we're really focused on Furiosa's story, and you see her, how he basically trades her, or like gives her to Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
So, because that's like one of the things that he wants to like...
Immortan Joe has some like fixation on her, which is weird.
Yeah.
And then like...
Well, she could become one of his wives eventually,
Yes, and like so in Fury Road, Furiosa obviously has some like extreme hatred towards Immortan Joe.
Yeah.
And so you think that they're gonna like develop it in this movie, and like he sees her as a little girl, and he's like, I want her basically, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is the beginning of that relationship.
You're waiting for that, yeah.
But my biggest issue with the film, in terms of it connecting to Fury Road, is the relationship between her and Immortan Joe is extremely undercooked.
It's non-existent.
It's non-existent. And so my whole thing, as great as Chris Hemsworth is, it's kind of like, well, what's the point of his character? That could have been Immortan Joe.
All her rage is directed at Chris Hemsworth.
Yes.
So you don't really get that connection with her and Joe.
Yeah.
So when Fury Road starts and she betrays him and it's like this big thing, you don't really know what leads to that. And like, in Fury Road, like, it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't,
So you
yeah.
think like they're going to build that up in this, and they just don't. And
Yeah.
you know, like she rescues the wives and everything. It's like she doesn't really have any connection to them
Well,
either.
that's the other thing when you watch Fury Road. It seems like her and the wives are very much like
like a tight-
They're a tight group. They have a history together.
Yeah.
But watching this, which is like a 2.5 hour
Yeah,
long
she's in that,
history
like-
lesson,
yeah,
there's like nothing between them.
She's in that wives like vault for like 8 minutes, and then she escapes
Yeah.
basically and pretends to be a boy, and then works her way up as a mechanic.
Yeah.
Essentially. And so like the middle part of the film focuses on that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So like Chris Hemsworth is just off in Gastown, just waiting for the plot to need him again. So that was like a convenient way for them to just like put him there.
Yeah.
So he can just be ready when he needs to come back. So you see her kind of like working her way up. And one thing about her character that, you know, in Fury Road, she's obviously like this badass. She's got her skill set, you know. So I thought you were going to see kind of more of that like develop in Furiosa. But when the film starts, she's kind of already, even as a little girl,
She's already capable.
She's already like very capable and a
Yeah.
badass. Now obviously in this world you would be very capable. I'm sure like her mother, like, you know, she's badass with the sniper rifle. She probably taught her daughter like survival stuff. But she's already this like silent badass character. So as she kind of grows up, you never really see her vulnerable, with the exception of like once she gets her mentor character.
I was just going to say
But
that
she's already like very capable leading up to that.
the only time you see her kind of start one way and then like end up as the Furiosa that we know, I think, is before she meets the mentor character. Then when that guy comes in, you kind of get the sense that she's his protege. You know what I mean?
And he was a cool character.
Oh,
'cause
he's great.
He kind of like dressed like Max a little.
Yeah.
But then he had like the job that she has in Fury Road.
Yeah, he was like the surrogate Max of this movie.
Yeah.
Sort of.
But I mean, it needed that.
no, it definitely did.
I'm so glad they. I mean, if you're not gonna have Max in it, at least have a guy who's kind of like Max, and he worked really well.
He
like
did.
he was a total badass.
That whole section of the film, though,
Yes,
is the best section.
yeah. So leading up to that, she hitches a ride underneath the big tanker truck that they're taking to Gastown, and of course the truck gets attacked.
Which is a
and that
great
sequence is so good.
Yeah.
It's a long sequence, but it never gets dull.
No, there's so many like surprising things that happen in it. Like
Yeah.
the guys just start paragliding and shit.
Yeah, just so
It's
much
so
fun
cool.
shit, and like
yeah.
as good as any of the sequences I think in Fury Road.
Yeah, I think so too.
And that hooks her up with Praetorian Jack, her mentor,
the mentor guy, yeah.
and you get like a little connection between them that's maybe a little more than mentor and mentee,
maybe a little romantic,
maybe, but they never really go that route,
which is great.
which is I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's fine.
That's
They
fine.
don't waste time doing that, and it's like
Right,
oh,
because it's not needed.
now they're in love, and so there's that aspect to
Right,
it.
right,
No.
and you know, of course, this guy never gets mentioned in Fury Road, or we have no idea he exists. So, like, really building that up in this wouldn't really make sense.
Yeah.
Unless you just wanted to show, like, oh, here's another person she lost, or it's like, okay, we get it, like, she's a badass and she's tough and whatever. So Chris Hemsworth finally comes back, but he's like running Gastown into the ground
Yeah.
or something. Like this is where it gets a little weird with the convenience of the plot, where he just comes back and like it was a little unclear as to like why now all of a sudden he's shitting the bed and like fucking things up with Gastown, because obviously it's been years that he's been running Gastown. And things have been fine, so I don't know what went down. They don't really get into that at all.
Maybe they'll make a prequel about that.
That's what I was thinking, you know,
Yeah,
like
they'll make
now that
the
we're doing all these
Dementis
prequels.
prequel.
Listen, he carries that teddy bear around,
Right.
and he makes a mention towards the end, like, oh, something happened to his family. Well, we got to get his prequel now.
I have to see
because
it now.
I can't just imagine, you know, something fucked up happened to his family. I need to see it, and I
Maybe
would
it'll be 3 hours long.
maybe we could use an Immortan Joe prequel.
Yeah.
I want to know why he's wearing that suit. You know, why his face is messed up.
Let it go.
Instead of moving forward, we'll just keep going back as far as we can.
Yeah, it's so like I liked Furiosa in Fury Road. I thought she was a cool character.
Yeah, she's
But
great.
there was nothing about her that made me think, oh man, I need to see more of her.
Right.
Like what about that character? Out of all the characters in all the Mad Max movies, like, you know, Tina Turner in Beyond Thunderdome, like what
Yeah,
about
what about her backstory?
Did they think like we need to see her backstory? Like who gives a shit? She's a cool character. The awesome thing about Mad Max movies is like each one he's just dropped in this random adventure and meets these weird characters, some memorable, some just kind of side characters, whatever. But he just kind of runs into these people, and it's all told through Max's eyes. And that's what makes them cool. Like, a lot of people complain about Fury Road. Max kind of takes a back seat in that movie. Yes and no. Like, I understand that is a valid criticism.
He does affect a lot of that story.
He does.
And when you break down, like, Max's character, like, he's always this loner who's just out there trying to survive. He doesn't want anything to do with anybody. And then, like, he kind of, like, regains a little bit of his humanity, and, like, he ultimately helps them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how all the old Mad Max movies were as well. Road Warrior, great fucking movie, but that's how it is. He just gets dropped into this adventure. Now, does he take as much of a backseat as he does in Fury Road?
No, I think
maybe not.
Fury Road, he definitely took the biggest backseat.
Yes.
But it did allow for other characters to kind of pop up and shine, and it lended to the richness of the world, like Nicholas Holt's character, and like even a lot of like just the side characters. Very memorable, very colorful characters.
Yeah.
And, you know, yes, Max had to take a backseat for that to happen. Hopefully, you know, if they ever move the story forward and we get Tom Hardy back, we'll get a little more Max in the driver's seat.
That's what's annoying about this movie is that it actually is good.
Yeah.
But they wasted it on a prequel. It's like, why didn't you spend this time advancing the story, making another one with Tom Hardy?
Right. Seeing how well Fury Road performed, you think like, okay, well, this is kind of a one-off, so let's just leave it alone. Now let's like get like maybe a new trilogy going, and we'll get Tom Hardy in there. We'll tell like a whole new story, which will be great. Because Fury Road proved that you can make Mad Max movies again, and people will go see them.
Which was shocking.
Yeah.
But cool.
Without Mel Gibson too.
I'm hungry.
But that's fine.
I mean,
you know.
Yeah, we'll kind of get into that too.
I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing an old man Max.
That's what Fury Road was supposed to be. Was like his swan song as Mad Max originally. But you know, Mel Gibson hates Jews. So.
We continue. We go to Bullet Town then, and you find out that Dr. Dementis has now taken over Bullet Town. So now he controls 2 of the 3 main fortresses. And you get another decent action scene.
Oh, great. It was great.
Like, not as good as the Fury Road scene.
No, it wasn't. But I remember thinking that particular scene, I was like, man, these action scenes are so fucking good. I'm like, I seriously think that I love this movie. This is so awesome. Like, I was really taken by the action scenes.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
Because George Miller's so good at them. Yeah. You see everything. You know where everything is. Like, you have a good sense of the spatiality of the scene. Like, just everything about it. Like, it's fucking solid. But then, like, the action scenes go away, and you're just kind of back with Furiosa.
Back to the story that we already know how it's going to play out.
Yeah,
but because like then he chases them out of the bullet farm after they basically wreck the place, and of course, like, you know, like her and Jack are not going to get away, and they get captured, and like he ends up killing Jack. Totally sucks, but I mean, it had to happen. Obviously, he's not around in Fury Road. Right. And you know, you see her. She like hacks her arm gets fucked up.
We see how her arm got
so important to know how that happened.
But that's not important right now.
So then she has a little scene where she makes herself a new arm. And then this is where I really didn't get why they did this. They have like a little monologue with a character from the original from Fury Road, talking about like all these great wars throughout history. And then he ends on the 40-day Wasteland War or whatever.
Yeah, so a war between Immortan Joe and his allies and
then
Chris Hemsworth.
We don't see it.
Yeah,
we don't see any of it. It does this like really shitty montage. The things that you guys decide to focus on but not focus on. Yeah, like, you spend like an hour with this little girl before Anya Taylor-Joy even shows up in the movie, showing her get abducted. But we spend like 8 seconds on this 40-day war. Yeah. That you really don't get any sense of like what the hell's happening. Chris Hemsworth is like, okay, we're gonna go take over the Citadel because I'm fooling Joe. We're gonna make him go to Gastown, but Joe isn't fooled. He knows he's coming. And then like this 40-day war happens, and then all of a sudden, Chris Hemsworth and all his people are just gone. And Furiosa takes a car and just goes after him in the desert.
Right. Well, and something else too. Immortan Joe knows that Chris Hemsworth is like full of shit because Furiosa tells him, and that's like probably the last scene Furiosa has with Immortan Joe.
Yeah, she helps him,
and it's her helping him. Yeah. So again, it's like, where's this like sour relationship that you have between you and him? Because you seem pretty cool with him, and like, when you first met him, he was like kind of looking out for you. I'm sure he's a gross pervert and stuff.
Of course.
But at the same time, he didn't.
We never see it.
You didn't see him like do anything bad to you. If he was the one that kidnapped her, his people kidnapped her, and he was the one that killed her mother, that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't have Hemsworth, which would be disappointing because he was great in it. But at the same time, Hemsworth's just kind of, as great as he is, but there's just no point to him. Like, that could have been a Morton Joe.
Right.
Anyway, sorry.
And we get this really prolonged, like, climax scene, which I did like the scene, but I did think it was a little anticlimactic, considering like the action scenes we got before. Like, she goes out into the desert in that car, and that was a cool scene. But then she goes after Hemsworth and all his guys. They all split up, and then there's like she's going after each of them, and then she finally gets him, and then like it just goes on and on and on. Like, it could have been shortened so much.
I mean, I wasn't bored.
No, I wasn't bored either. But
you're
like,
right though. It does go on, and the movie's already fucking long as it is, and it's just like
it really drags. But
Yeah.
like you said, it's not boring, but
At all, no.
It could have just been tighter, considering like
Yes.
what we got with Fury Road. Like, the conclusion of that movie happens like after this crazy action scene, and then they get back to the Citadel, and it's like, we're out. Like, story done. This, it just prolongs the hell out of it. All of a sudden, there's this huge time jump.
it's just so weird how they do it. Suddenly, just we're on the back of her, and it's
just
Charlize Theron.
it's
Okay,
right, and then
And
we
she's
see we see clips of like what leads up to Fury Road, and then the credits start rolling, and then it shows clips of Fury Road.
Yeah.
Which,
It's like a fucking Rocky movie.
okay, now something that was like very apparent to both of us when the movie started was the completely different color grade they did on this film compared to Fury Road.
Fury Road has this like really zany, wacky,
It's a
oversaturated,
hypersaturated color
like,
grade.
like orange and browns with like the contrast with the
blues,
blue sky.
Very poppy.
Very poppy, but
Very cool.
It really worked for that movie.
It did.
And the marketing for Furiosa seemed like it was kind of maintaining that visual vocabulary. You know, it looked the same.
Yeah.
But then when you watch it, it's just a little bit more desaturated.
Yeah, it's a little more muted, and
Yeah.
it's almost just kind of graded normally.
Yes.
So we're watching this, and I'm thinking like we're in the beginning when she's like actually a little child and she
Yeah.
gets kidnapped, and it's like, oh, it's probably just going to be desaturated for this part, and then
That part ends up being an
that
hour.
part goes on for an hour, and then, like, you know, because the movie's broken up into all these chapters.
Yeah.
And then like she gets a little older, and then she turns into Anya Taylor-Joy, and it's like, no, it's just graded like a normal film.
Yeah, it was just a weird choice.
And then at the end, when they show the clips for Fury Road, they were also desaturated. They were not the hypersaturated
they made them
color.
look like the film Furiosa. Yeah.
Interesting choice. I don't know why they didn't maintain the consistency in the color grade.
Especially because I swear, like all the promotional materials for the movie, they
Yeah, I
make
remember
it
the
look
trailer
same.
being like very saturated.
Yeah, very poppy, just like
I don't know.
Mad Max and Fury Road. And I was actually I was watching those trailers thinking, this is cool. They're continuing that visual style, but it was
Yeah.
a little different. The other thing that's a little different is the effects. So now, to be fair, Fury Road usually gets all this credit with like, oh, it's all practical effects. That's bullshit.
there's a fair amount of
There's actually a
practical.
lot of visual effects in that movie, and some of them are a little dodgy too. You
Yeah.
know. That being said, though, Furiosa, it's got some fucking terrible green screen in it. Like really shitty compositing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it feels more apparent with the like neutral color grade too.
Yeah,
Like if it was more
exactly.
that like really hyper saturated color, I kind of excuse some of the
Well, yeah, that like
the visual effects
that
a
was
little
like
bit.
a stylistic choice of Fury Road that kind of helped some of this.
It helps smooth out some of the edges on that.
Yeah, exactly.
This now, like with the more realistic color grade, you feel those visual effects a little more when they're not working.
Yeah.
But you know, outside of that, it's decent. Everyone in the film is decent.
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy, whatever the fuck her name is.
Yeah.
She was good.
Yeah, she has very few lines in the film.
When she did talk, she kind of sounded like Charlize Theron. You know.
Yeah, she's a very expressive face. You know.
Yeah. They don't really look alike, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. She
Yeah.
still did a good job though. Like,
Yeah.
it did feel like the same character.
Yeah, something that I was thinking about after we saw it. Like the whole thing is about her. You know, she wants revenge and, you know, against Dr. Dementis. But she ultimately just wants to go back home to the green place.
Promise me you'll find your way home.
You already know that the green place,
It's gone.
it's gone
Yeah.
by the time Fury Road starts. So the difference in time from when she's taken to when Fury Road, I guess, is about 15 years or so,
Yeah.
roughly. So in a span of 15 years, the people that were in charge of that green place ran that fucking place into the ground so hard that
Right.
it evaporated.
Bunch of fucking hippie commies, dude.
It vanished
Erased from existence.
to the point where there was only a few old women left and her friend Valkyrie.
Yeah.
And then you think like the Citadel, when she gets taken there as a child, lots of lush greenery on top. And 15 years later,
Same, if not better.
still looks the same,
Yeah.
if not better.
Yeah.
Now, you can say what you want about Joe, but I think his allocation of resources, I think he was running things a little better than the women that were in charge at the Green Place. Just an observation, you know, like I want to know. Maybe we'll get a prequel about that.
That could be part of the Martin Joe prequel.
Yes, you see what happens in the 15 years where the green place just falls to shit.
Yeah.
Because that place was looking pretty dope in the beginning of Furiosa. I want to know what the hell happened that quickly that it just turned into a swamp and everybody died. Would love to know what that backstory was.
Might as well make a prequel about it.
Might as well make a prequel because we gotta know. Can't just let things be left to the imagination.
I'm Furiosa!
So where are you coming down on this one?
Man, okay, so I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. So
Okay, I was not expecting that high.
it is still at the end of the day a really, really well-made movie. And if the attention to detail, the energy behind it, if all of that was put into an actual Mad Max movie, this shit would have been like a fucking 9.5, 10 out of 10 maybe. Like it would have been just like awesome. But
Right.
I mean, I still really enjoyed the movie. It's just pointless. I get that's the best way to put it. It's just pointless. But it really is a well-made movie, and I think that everyone should go see it still.
For me, I went 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Because I thought about going higher because it is decent, but I also hate prequels.
Yeah.
And I really hate sitting down to watch a movie and knowing like 95% of what's going to happen.
Yeah, prequels suck, dude. Like in this, it's no different in that regard. But if you are going to make a prequel, this is one of the best ones, if not the best one.
Yeah. So is it worth seeing in theaters? I think so.
Yeah.
Especially just for the action scenes alone. Like this, it's a theater movie.
Yeah.
People wait for streaming now and all that shit. It's like, don't do that. If you're gonna see it, or if you kind of want to see it in the theater.
Well, I think that's also one of the reasons why it's underperforming is nowadays people are conditioned to understand that, like, okay, I don't need to see this shit. It's just
It'll
gonna
be streaming in a few
3
weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of sucks, but
That is the fault of the studios.
Yeah.
You know, that's the
Yeah.
reason why that
Yeah.
they're kind of in that mess right now.
don't let your movie go streaming in 3 weeks then, or what? You know,
Stop
like
doing that shit.
stop doing it. And people
Yeah.
go see it in theaters because that's the only place they can see it, which is the only way we could go see movies back in the day. Then we had to wait a year for it to come out on VHS.
Yeah, remember it took a year for like Jurassic Park to come out on VHS.
Oh my God, yeah.
Titanic, it took like a year to come out.
Yeah. So if you didn't go see it, you weren't seeing it.
Yeah.
For a while. Now, on the other scale, woke shit.
This movie's getting like this weird reputation online. You know,
This
like
girl
very,
boss
very
shit.
clickbaity girl boss shit. Maybe even our thumbnail will do that. I don't
Maybe
know.
our thumbnail's
But-
probably going to do it. But you know what? I didn't get that at all.
No, and like
So
Fury Road came out in 2015 before, like, you know, pre-Trump.
Right.
So it was before the world was broken, you know, before Hollywood just lost their fucking minds. The media was like picking these like activist groups or something, and they were just like talking about how, oh my gosh, look at these misogynists talking about how this is like a feminist movie, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I guess if you watch it through that lens, you can come to the determination that's a feminist movie, Fury Road. But not really.
just because it's like she's rescuing a bunch of women from an evil guy. It's like,
I guess,
yeah, but,
but in that
there's
movie,
nothing about that that's like.
there's no, like, none of the tropes that we have of like girl boss or like Mary Sue shit. It's not really like that. Like,
Right.
Max, he bests her in a fight. she uses her wits to fight back. You know,
Right. And then like she's good with the sniper rifle. She takes the rifle from him at one point to shoot the light out.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I mean, that's fine. Like you see in Furiosa, like, yeah, she comes from people who like, her mother's good with a sniper rifle. And as a woman, like, yeah, that would be the preferred weapon for me too.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Fighting from a distance.
But it wasn't like okay, fuck this movie. Like it was like woke trash. It wasn't even like
No,
that.
not even close.
And I think that Furiosa continues that trend. I really don't think that this is like some girl boss shit. But that
No,
being
now
said,
is she good at pretty much everything she attempts, or is she, you know, does she fail all the time? I mean, for the most part, like, she does shit pretty
yeah,
well.
She does,
but like
you do get the sense that she does. She is learning in the movie.
yes,
you know?
and it makes sense. Like the things she's good at, you kind of would be good at in this world.
Yeah.
I guess like it never felt out of place that she was like magically so good at something that she shouldn't be good at.
Yeah.
So I never got that feeling.
Yeah.
This whole girl boss thing.
Well, and all that said, I think that part of the reason, like, you know, everyone's saying, oh, everyone's getting sick and tired of this woke shit. Like, that's why movies are, like, taking a shit, blah, blah, blah. And there might be some truth to that. I don't know. Perhaps people seeing the trailer to this movie, they're just like, oh, fuck, not another one of these girl boss bullshit
You watch the
movies.
trailer, and I totally understand why you would think that.
Yeah, so that might be a factor as to why people didn't show up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe the trailer pushed the I'm Furiosa, like, bullshit too much. It's like, who cares?
Obviously, like, we are where we are politically, and we're kind of like in that sphere, in that world.
Yeah.
So you kind of become insulated, and sometimes it's hard to like see how the normies are taking it.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't really say if like they're starting to get on board with this like fuck these girl boss Mary Sue movies. Like, I don't know if that's the case or not.
Right.
But I wouldn't be
she-
surprised. Even though this movie is not one of those, I'm not surprised just because of the way things, like, for we've been fed a steady diet for the past 10 years.
It makes sense for people to be cautious
Yes,
about
exactly.
this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, all you have to go on is the trailer. And the trailer, if you're savvy at all, you might look at that and think, like, okay,
Right.
this looks like more of the same shit we've been getting.
Yeah.
You know, here's another Marvels, or here's another Madam whatever it is. But it's really not that.
No, and there's no like social message being shoved down your
Yeah,
throat.
and I mean, you know, it doesn't go that way at all.
No, it doesn't.
And
They could
I
have easily
wasn't-
said like part of the reason why they're in this wasteland now is because of like global warming or some bullshit.
No, and they
But
don't even
do
get
any
into
of
that.
stuff.
No, they don't get into it. It's
Yeah.
just shit went down.
Yeah,
and
it's
the
just,
world's fucked
it's
up.
a normal fucking movie.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. I was thinking like maybe half of one
That's
rainbow.
what I was gonna give it 0.5.
Yeah, 0.5 out of 5. It's not there.
No, this was a normal fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that it was.
Check it out if you can in the theater.